today's episode, we're going to be discussing red flags. And today I'm joined by my lovely marketing team. And so we have Miss Lisa Carroll, who's all things business development. We have Miss Savannah Smith, who's on the video side, content creation. And we have Miss Erin Johnson, who's all things digital when it comes to SEO, so many other things in terms of graphics, design, so on and so forth. So I'm joined by my marketing team today, and so we're going to talk about red flags.
Yes, just want to say that we are happy to be here. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. So let's talk about it. Red flags. So I want to say for the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks, this has been trending all across social media. It's been red flags in regards to dating, business, just everyday life tools. And I thought that this discussion was pretty interesting, so why not bring it here to our podcast and let's talk about it. So let's dive deep into red flags when it comes to generational wealth and just overall business. So Miss Savannah, what is some of your red flags in regards to that?
Well, I think that's huge, especially for the age range from your 25 to 35. You know, especially for a woman. Let's take a woman, for example. We want to buy our makeup. We want to buy our hair. Yeah, got a new. You need a new wig, right? You need to buy a new wardrobe. You want to buy the new phone, which I did. So I'm guilty. I did that red flag. Instead of possibly investing or putting it into a 401k, I just dropped $1,100 on a new phone. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people can relate with that.
Absolutely. How do you tell someone, or how do you help them prioritize?
So this is what I always ultimately say is how I look at it, is start viewing things in terms of paying yourself first. So when you think about all the things that we do in a given day, given week, given month, we talk about hair, nails, we talk about our car note, we talk about our mortgage, we talk about the utilities have to be paid. All of these people have to get paid. At the end of the day, okay, once you pay phone bill, lights, Cox cable, how much are you paying yourself at the end of the day?
So you're treating it like a bill, is what you're saying?
I'm treating
kind of like a bill.
You can treat it like a bill, or you can treat it like investing into myself. When you talk about the ultimate self-care, it's about investing into yourself.
Right.
So what am I investing into myself on a weekly, monthly basis? Because if I'm just paying everybody else, what do I have at the end of the day to take home, to invest into my kids, into my future, into the things that I want to be able to basically do and spend my money how I want to basically be able to spend it. But it's first paying yourself first, and then you can hit the other things that you want to basically do.
How do you get in the mindset of it? Mindset. That's the word.
So when it comes to the mindset, I first want to speak about what are some typical spending guidelines when it comes to our monthly budget. What I suggest is the first 10%, if you're a believer, ultimately should go to tithes, right? The next 60% should ultimately go towards your living expenses. So things in terms of, your bills, your mortgage, phone bill, car notes, so on and so forth, as I mentioned. Now, the next 20%, so we're at 70% right now, 60%, 10% tithes, 60% is going to go to your living expenses. Now, your next 20% is where you pay yourself, which is equivalent of savings and investments. You should put 20% of your income towards savings and investments. Many type of different vehicles, whether that may be 401k, life insurance, stocks and bonds. But 20% should ultimately be going towards paying for your future,
Right.
so that you have ample amount of cash working for you as well, making sure that your money is ultimately making money for you as a business,
I think
even
you
if
have
you
to
don't
say it
have
like
a
that.
business. So
Pay for your future.
paying for your future. And then the last 10%, it should ultimately go towards emergency fund, debt cancellation, and or my wants. So We can budget for the things that we ultimately want. I want to take this trip. I want to do X, Y, and Z. But it needs to come out of that last 10%.
Gotcha.
So is that the hair and the nails is included in that 10%?
It can be.
Because the reason I'm asking is because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, 20%, I'd have to do the numbers and I'd have to, math is hard.
Uh-huh.
So, but just sitting there thinking about, I mean, just we are a society that wants immediate
Gratification.
gratification,
Instant.
and that is, you know, I only get my hair colored every 3 or 4 months. Now everybody knows that because let's be real, I'm blonde, sort of, and so I mean, it looks good, right? I couldn't be any other color. So, you know, I've done that. There are a lot of people who get their hair done every 6 weeks. Those who get it done every couple of weeks, I don't even know how I don't know how they live. I don't know how they pay their mortgage. Because I have a hard time paying my mortgage, and I'll get my hair done every 3 times a year. So, but the nails and the instant, and this is what I want, and this is what I want. How do you help somebody, or just anybody in the society, sit there and say, well, I can't see it right now.
Okay.
And I'm not really concerned about that because, let's be real, maybe I don't have kids. Maybe I'm not really at that point in my life. Or, you know what, I work really hard and I deserve to do this right now. That can wait.
So, I'm going to give you a quick stat. Quick stat is only 35% of Americans are able to financially handle a $1,000 unexpected expense. So, over 65% of Americans, if they get hit with an unexpected expense of $1,000 or more, can't handle it. So, what I'm ultimately saying is start somewhere, number one. So, you don't necessarily start at 20%. It's about crawling before you walk. And so from there, I may be only able to start at 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. So, but understand that the objective or the goal should be 20%, and that's how when you talk about, being young, or you talk about various different topics in terms of, I don't have kids, or I'm young, and so on and so forth. Well, my question becomes, okay, well, are you too young to be wealthy? Are you too young to create wealth? Are you too young to make money? That becomes my question. So when you want to be able to do the things that you really want to do at the scale that you want to do them at, whether you have kids or not. So whether that may be whatever your pleasures are. So it may be, hey, I want to buy this particular property. Hey, I want to be able to buy this piece of art. I want to be able I want to start this initiative. It may be a nonprofit. I want to be able to give back. All those things takes resources.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, it's important that we're putting our money into things that are creating what's called compound interest. That's where your money begins to make money for you. And so it's very, important that we begin to look at, how we spend our money, what our daily, weekly habits are, and begin to pay ourselves first.
What are those avenues that you can get the compound interest? Tell us those places.
So, I mean, one of the main, avenues that I personally think is the greatest kind of return on investment is through life insurance, okay? Because what's going to take place is that when I say life insurance, I'm speaking about permanent life insurance. So not
As
necessarily
opposed to what?
not term.
Okay.
So you have term insurance. This is where what happens is you take out a policy. It's going to be usually somewhere between 20 to 30 years. Okay, but what happens in that policy is that if you live past 20 or 30 years, say if I'm a 30-year-old male, okay, if I purchase a 20-year term policy or a 50-year term policy, well, by the time I'm 50 years old or 51 years old, if I am still alive, that policy doesn't ultimately pay out because I'm still alive.
And you can't do anything with the policy.
You can't do anything with it. And most term policies, some term policies have what's called a convertible option, which can be converted from a term to a more permanent policy. But also what happens is if you're trying to do that at age 45 or age 48 as opposed to age 30, when I took out this policy, it's going to be that much more expensive because now I'm being quoted based upon being a 45 or 48-year-old male as opposed to being a 30-year-old male. Now the second thing, when it comes to investment, understanding that when it comes to insurance or permanent insurance, it allows you the ability to grow cash value. And so on the cash value side of things, you talk about, okay, well, how is this an investment tool? What happens in a permanent policy, you're going to have a monthly note, okay? What you're paying that monthly note, a portion is going to be applied to your actual premium, and then the other portion is going to be actually invested for you. So into different indexes. So you talk about stocks and bonds and so on and so forth. And so there's different indexes like S&P 500, the MLSB index. There's many different indexes that are invested into the stock market that perform at different rates of return. So it may be somewhere between 5% to 12%, 13%. So what's happening is that every month I'm paying that particular note. Portion goes to my premium, but the other portion is being invested for me. Based upon the amount that's being invested for me, I'm able to access that cash when I need it and spend it however I want to spend it. And that's how life insurance or permanent life insurance can be an investment vehicle. Of course, another investment vehicle in terms of savings and investments and having your money to grow for you are things like traditional stocks, bonds. You also have, real estate investment trusts that you can invest into. You have other things such as, 401k, where you can put money into, and that money will ultimately, depending on your employer or the 401k, whether there's a match as well. So whether the employer is adding or contributing contributing to your policy as well as you making that contribution. So it's called a match. So those are just a few different vehicles that people can explore in terms of making sure that my money is in places and spaces where it's making money. Because if your money is just in a traditional savings account, well, you're only going to get maybe about 0.06% rate of return or interest on that money.
Which is not very much compared, right?
Correct.
So, Ms. Erin, listening to what was just said, so as the youngest person in the room, I remember when I was 25, my parents presented this to me, and I was just like, well, that makes sense, but I was also about to get married and about to have kids and all of those things, so it made sense to me. But for you, that's not your plan, at least in the next couple of years, how do you feel about everything that's being said, and what are your thoughts on that?
Right, just to say, I've been soaking all of this up, but that is definitely a huge red flag. Being 24, I hear a lot of my friends say all the time, I don't have any kids, I'm not worried about that, I'm focused on getting money and doing this and that, I need instant, I want the money now, what hustle can I do, what can I do to get the benefits now? Right. And so I think just understanding that it's never too early to start, and just being in this room, participating in this conversation now, it allows you to get a different perspective that it's never too young. But Mr. Austin, can you kind of explain a little bit about what's that starting point look like? How much can I put down? Where can I get started to actually potentially be able to use that investment in things that I can actually do?
Okay. So you can get started with whatever your budget ultimately is. So whether that may be $50 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month, whatever your budget allows for. The main thing is ultimately to get started. And so one of the things that you mentioned is you said as young people we like to make money. We want to make money. That's what it's about. And so that's important. But you also have to understand the long game. So as a young person, it's not sexy. It's not attractive to say, okay, let's play the long game. You want everything now. But what if I told you that planning in advance, $100 a month in 10, 20 years, let's say that's able to generate you $100,000, $200,000 in cash. So now, in 10 years, 20 years, when you want to be able to do certain things, when you may have a family at this point in time, or let's say you do have kids in the next 5, 10 years, okay? You want to be able to invest into their college education. You want to be able to have resources to be able to do the thing, put them into private school. You want to do various different things. And so it's always, about planning in advance prior to it being necessarily too late. It's never too late, but the earlier you start, the better. And so what happens is, once again, compound interest ultimately begins to happen. So the power of compound interest is that it's like good old home cooking. So what happens is, the longer you let something season and marinate, the better it's gonna ultimately taste at the end of the day. So you don't cook, certain things in a microwave. You cook them in what? In a slow pot. I know this may be old school and all this kind of stuff, but when it comes to making the most money, sometimes you gotta let that money ultimately sit and let it make money for you so that it multiplies faster and faster and faster. And so that's what I guess I would encourage, young people, is that number one, if you want to get money, start now.
I agree, and that is definitely great because being young, we don't learn these things in school. Like, this is kind of brushed over. We just kind of go straight into, okay, invest, and that's all you get. But you don't get the meat of it or the bulk of it. So I think that this is definitely great discussion. But versus like technology, we get that instantly. We get so much information on that. But I think knowing that it's good to invest and this is how you actually set yourself up to be successful and play the long game is definitely important.
So speaking of her being young, investing's not sexy, technology. What is an avenue, you were talking about your avenues earlier, what's an avenue that the younger generation could use that find investing sexy? Is that apps? Is that...
So, there's many different apps that are out there today. So whether it may be Acorns, it may be Stash. If you want to get into investing, you even have things like Robinhood, which has gotten a bad kind of rep per se. But there's many, whatever.
Red flag.
Red flag. But there's certain platforms as well as Digit. So what happens is that, let's just say that if you talk about that 10% emergency fund and being able to have money to invest, what happens is you have these apps that will do all of the hard work for you.
See, that's what I need. I'm 30, 27, 2700. I'm entering my 30s.
It's gonna be okay, I promise. It's gonna be okay.
Anyways, I'm 29 plus 12 months. So, yeah, I want something that's easy because it's hard to go and sit down with someone and be like, all right, what do I do with money?
Right.
This is what I need for bills. This is what I need for groceries. This is what I need for my baby. This is what I need for my car. I really want to get that phone. Right. So okay.
So that brings up another good point is two things. It's automation. Use the power of automation. So we're in this technological society. Use the power of automation. That makes it even easier so that you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to kind of think about it and kind of do. Let it be automated. So what am I saying? Well, with these apps, what happens is, let's just say that you go out and you spend $5.02 on a hamburger or whatever it may be.
Right.
With the power of these apps, they can do certain rounding for you. So that 502 will round to $6. They're gonna take that 98 cents and they're gonna invest it for you. We're gonna save it for you. So you won't ever really necessarily feel that particular savings and investment that you just ultimately made. It's doing the work for you. And so when you look at your budget as well on a monthly basis, we automatically pay what? Our phone bill. We automatically pay our car note. Why don't we automatically pay ourselves?
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. I know I do Stash, and so there was I invest a little bit, but then I also like to have a little bit more control and do some research. So there's like the high risk, the moderate risk, the low risk. category. Of course, I'm not ever going to be low risk. So, but you know, they have like the groupings and stuff. But what I did was I started to let it take out $5. Like it did like this automatic every 2 weeks, and I never paid attention to it. And then all of a sudden, I have like over $4,000 in this app, and I'm like, okay. But then of course when I'm like,
I'd be able to look at it. I'd be like, let's see that.
Well, no. When you invest, let me tell you, when you invest, you do start to look at it, and then you start to like. It's fun to do research. As long as you don't get like scared in that first week or so, or like the first couple of weeks, and you can like really play that.
Why would I get scared?
Oh, when it drops like 100 points, yeah, you see this big old dip because they
See,
do
that's
a
why I
graph.
can't look at it.
Yeah, see, but I mean, you just have to be patient. But and also, you know, do your research and see. Like there was a company overseas that I invested in. I mean, a legit ton of money that's coming across. And then of course I shop at Home Depot a lot, and so why not? I get a lot of return off at Home Depot.
Yeah, and that's like, so far, any of these red flags, we've been saying all of these hesitations, concerns, it's really important to just take that risk and get started, because these are all just common excuses or reasons why we hear people are not invested, are not focused on generational wealth. So I definitely think that.
Well, I think there's this like stigma around it that it's hard. It's not really hard.
Right.
Or you know that you have to have a specialist or someone has to.
Right.
There's so many. If you just do a little bit of research, there's a lot of really free, great advice, and people who are willing to offer, you know, suggestions and offer insight into what they're seeing in the market, because they are professionals, but they want everyone to be successful as they have. They're not hoarding it.
No, not at all. And from a young person's perspective, y'all can see my hands, I'm doing the quote sign. But from a young person's perspective, I just think it's really important, as all these people here have said, just really make sure that you are getting out there, you're starting early. We all have these big goals and aspirations, but it's really important to focus on the follow through and actually accomplishing it. So if that's reaching out to your friends or being that person in your friend group and taking the initiative to start those talks about investing and start those goals and networking with a mentor or somebody else, I think that's definitely how, as a young person or even someone that's not necessarily young, but like Ms. Lisa said, you're not knowledgeable, you don't have kids, you feel like you're not at that point, when honestly there isn't a starting point, anyone can do it. So definitely.